Okay, so the first sentence is confusing because instead of saying provides for, it says provides far. So far is wrong. Um, so it provides for maintenance in a certain territory of equal commercial and industrial rights for the nationals of all countries. Um, in that in that case, what they're saying is that the policy is about doing business, and people from any country can do business on equal terms in a particular country. Uh, they can own property, they can enter into contracts in the same way that citizens of that country can. Um, so that's what an open door policy is supposed to be. Uh, and then in the next sentence, they talk about it. The word specific here means that it's been made explicit. So it's been specified. They've pointed it out and said, this is a policy. It's an open door policy. But then they talk about its roots or its origins. To say it was rooted in is to say that it came from earlier policies. So even though the first time that it's named this specific thing, um, that is, it's been specified, is by the United States, it actually has longer origins. It has earlier origins. So when they say it's rooted in, it means it came from somewhere else, grew out of something else. Mm. So because they're talking about it being first advanced, so it's so to be a specific policy, it has to have been, I guess, named or labeled as such. Um, but they're saying there's a difference between a policy that has this label that's been specified as this type of policy and a policy that has this effect but hasn't been given this label. Um, and they see that as an earlier thing coming before open door policy. Mm. Rooted in means it had its origins in or it grew out of. So they're saying that in these treaties from an earlier period of time, um, there was a version of this kind of arrangement where someone from another country could come and do business on equal terms with citizens in that country. Saying is as a specific policy, it first came in the United States, but it had origins earlier in other agreements. So the origins of this policy is actually in certain treaties um, that were made in the 19th century. And clauses are elements in those treaties. They're specific things that people are agreeing to do in a treaty. A treaty is an agreement between countries. Mm, yeah, that's right. Mm, um, so I, I think they mean a treaty can be concluded. That is, a treaty can be um, agreed to. It's an I think it's an obscure way of using conclude. Um, it doesn't get used this way very often, but I think that's what it means. It's a treaty that has been agreed to. So the treaty process, the process of coming up with an agreement, has been concluded. Yes, that's right. So what happened is I believe that Europeans wanted to be able to um, force the Chinese government to accept their products and for those products to be sold within China. And one of the key products was opium, which was created in the British colonies in South and Southeast Asia. They wanted to be able to sell opium in China, and the Chinese government at the time said, "No, we don't want you to do that because it's bad for everybody." So there was a war, a series of wars, and in the after that, um, a set of agreements were made uh, which guaranteed the rights of, um, I think the United States and a number of European powers guaranteed their rights to sell their products inside China. They won and they forced China to accept their policies. That's the point of this paragraph. They're saying that what looks like an open door policy came out of a forced open policy. Mm. So it's a label that they're putting on a kind of free trade agreement. The late 19th century and early 20th century. I don't know if there's an open door policy, but there are certainly free trade agreements that have come into effect. Um, so permitting companies and individuals from specific countries to trade freely in other countries. A kind of infamous one was the North American Free Trade Agreement, which activists in Mexico claimed would have a huge negative effect um, on their economy and society. But I think also people in Canada and the United States did not like either. Um, mm, mm. Yeah, so you have to pay extra to be able to sell something inside a particular country. Yeah, so this is about whether or not the Chinese government was allowed to charge people more to import their goods into China. Um, and then similarly, in the example of the Congo, um, it was about whether or not someone could prevent or ask extra money for someone else to trade there. Um, Africa. So what we're talking about is an imperialist policy, like forcing countries to accept the products of your empire. Yeah, a levy is like a tax. Yeah, but you tax someone who who is a citizen or who works in your country, but you can levy. Um, I think the difference is that you can take levies for other specific reasons. It's a different um, mechanism, but it's the same basic idea. Someone has to pay in order to do something. So preferential duties. So I think what they mean is that I think in the case of the Congo, it was about European countries competing with each other. And this decision was about saying that just because you had more control politically over that part of Africa didn't mean that you could prevent other countries from selling their goods there. Um, so preferential is giving preference to. So I guess the whole paragraph is about giving preference to or priority to some countries over others when it comes to economic activities inside your country. The rule is it's there to stop. Let's say that France controlled the Congo Basin in 1885. I don't know if that's true, but let's say they did. Um, they could then say, yes, Spanish companies are allowed to trade here, but if German companies want to trade here, they have to pay 20% extra in levies. Um, mm.